winning their 16th straight and earning their 50th victory with a win over the Thunder. Houston just tearing through the league right now, a half game ahead of the Warriors. But Stephen A., what is one thing that Houston is better at than Golden State?
Nothing. I can't think of anything. I'll be the first to say that right here. I said it last night on SportsCenter. I'll say it again. Absolutely, positively nothing. Now, I will say this. They are so good, they are so gifted, and they are so elite that Golden State would need to bring its A game in order to beat Houston. That would be required. But outside of that, nothing. Golden State in its A game against Houston in its A game, Golden State wins every time. It's just that simple.
There are things that Houston does better than Golden State. It's an interesting question because you look and you say, well, who moves, Stephen A., you've been talking about who are the longer athletes, who has more talent. That's Golden State. That's Golden State. Who shoots the ball better? That's Golden State. Well, what do the Rockets do better than Golden State, right? If Golden State's moving the ball better, shooting the ball better, they have more talent, etc. Here's the thing that the Rockets are doing better than anyone, including Golden State, significantly better than Golden State. They're creating higher quality shots. And the reason they're doing that is because they don't have one elite ball handler, as the Warriors do in Steph Curry, who can take you off the dribble, just break down the opponent off the dribble. They got two. And not only are Harden and CP3 elite at taking their defender off the dribble, but they're also elite decision makers, elite passers, and excellent shooters. That is something Golden State doesn't have. They have one guy like that. Houston has two. And there's a kind of, not exponential, there's like an amplification of everything else that you can do with the team when you have two guys who can do that instead of one. Here's another thing that the Rockets have that Golden State doesn't have. They have higher quality bigs. One of the deals that Golden State had to make in a salary cap league is they had to clear room for Kevin Durant. Of course, you make that deal. It made Golden State still probably, although not necessarily, the favorites to beat Houston, but they don't have bigs, whereas Houston has Clint Capella, and Houston can do some things with their bigs, including rim defend, that Golden State can't do. So there are a couple of things that Houston does better than Golden State. It's not just that they're getting lucky or they're almost as good as Golden State. They do some stuff better.
Well, actually, I disagree, as we all know, but here's the reason why. First of all, when you talk about quality bigs, that's a misnomer because the reality of the situation is the style of play incorporated by the Golden State Warriors and the Houston Rockets caters better to the Golden State Warriors because the Golden State Warriors being able to do what they do, but having the length to go associated with their talent limits what you require from your bigs as opposed to Houston, who would need more from their bigs in the particular system that they play in. That's point number one. Point number two, when you talk about decision making, you're saying that Golden State has one, but the Houston Rockets have two. I'm sorry, as elite as I believe Chris Paul to be, and I certainly don't think anybody's better in terms of decision making, there's a lot to be said about the decision making of Steph Curry, not just the greatness of his shot. Last time I checked, Kevin Durant is a pretty good decision maker. He's one of the most efficient offensive superstars we have seen. When you think about role players on their bench, the Iguodala's and the Sean Livingstons of the world, and the decision making that they're able to employ coming off the bench, you certainly have to give them an edge over Houston as well. And then last but not least, again, James Harden is a superstar. He's my vote for league MVP. I consider Chris Paul to be an MVP candidate, and obviously he's the future first ballot Hall of Famer as far as I'm concerned. But even with all of that being said, neither of them are the 6'11" Kevin Durant. You look at a Steph Curry, even though he's just 6'3", that's 3 inches above CP3. You look at your third wheel, your third offensive option, who also happens to be arguably one of the top 5 shooters in the history of basketball, in a guy like Klay Thompson. You have a utility man in Draymond Green who's an all-star because of all the things that he does and what he brings to the table. Rebounding, defending, assisting, pushing the ball up the floor, leading breaks, creating opportunities, not to mention the fact that makes him a decision maker. So when we talk about the category of decision making, it goes to Golden State. When we talk about the plethora of superstars, it goes to Golden State. When we talk about those superstars and their ability to shoot, the edge goes to Golden State. When we talk about the bigs because of the manner in which they're utilized, it goes to Golden State. I can't think
No,
of
it
one
doesn't.
definitive
I have one.
category where Houston. Go ahead, Molly.
What about?
Wait, hold on, Molly.
I just going to ask. You could answer it, but
No.
what about depth? Who has better depth and more
I think
and more
Golden State.
productive bench? Okay.
I think Golden State.
Max, do you?
Yeah, although
That's why I brought up
hold on,
Livingston and Iguodala and
Wait, hold on.
Swaggy P.
Hold on. The question wasn't what the Warriors do better. The question was what the Rockets do better than the Warriors. You said you
And I
couldn't
said
think of a
nothing.
single thing. Well, I
said
just
nothing.
gave you two that you tried to
And I
refute by
just knocked
spreading
them,
out
chopped
decision
them
making
down
all
piece
over.
by piece by
all-
piece.
But no. You spun your wheels, but you didn't address the issue, which is they have two elite guys
Max,
who can
Max,
take you off the dribble.
Max,
Two.
I wish you could see me. I wish you could see me right now kicking up my feet. If that ain't the pot calling the kettle black, gray, white, or whatever, you're going to accuse me of running around the block and not being direct with what I'm saying. What are you smoking?
Yes.
You got to be crazy. There's only one person on this show that goes up the block, down the hill, around the corner, runs a mile and a half before you even get to the damn point.
Because
and
Stephen
his
A,
name ain't Stephen A.
You know why?
I can promise you that.
You know why, Stephen A? I will do whatever it takes to get to the truth. Sometimes the truth is right there in front of you. The question was, what does Houston do better than the Warriors? They have two elite decision makers, not just decision makers, but guys who can take you off the dribble in their backcourt. As a result of that plus their system, they generate higher quality shots than the Warriors. The Warriors do shoot it better than the Rockets, but that's one thing the Rockets do better. Another thing is they have higher quality bigs. They rim defend better. That's two things they do better. And by the way,
and
what
that's
it
two
adds
things
up
I
to
disagreed with
is
you about.
wins. Well, they're doing something better because they're winning more than the Warriors. So what are they doing
Not
better?
necessarily. They both got 50 wins
and they're whooping
in the
teams.
same night. They both got 50 wins on the same night. And oh, by the way, this is the same Max Kellerman that sat up there and watched James Harden be a runner-up for league MVP honors last year, and you spent the first 6 months talking about how that didn't mean a damn thing to you because of what he did against the Spurs in the postseason. So how is it that you go off when you want to about what he did and ignore what he did in the regular season last year, but now bring that up as your argument? Oh, who's winning more now?
Well,
so what?
Because we're not talking about what's going to happen X, Y, and Z in the postseason. We're saying, what do the Rockets do better than the Warriors? Those are two things. And here's another thing they do better than the Warriors.
No.
They are slightly better. They're slightly better at winning this year than the Warriors. And by the way, that's been obvious whenever they've been fully loaded. They were good. The Rockets were very good without CP3. They were very good without Harden. But when they're both together with Capella,
you're about to get your basketball card confiscated because you know too much about the game of basketball to say, by me, brother, by me. It's very easy. Stephen Naismith, recognized. Here's the deal. The fact of the matter is you're the same Max Kellerman that has pointed to on many instances how you know what the regular season is preparation for the postseason. Isn't it Max Kellerman that sat up there and said, why are y'all sweating LeBron? What do you care about it? This man is preparing for a championship, not to win regular season awards when he wasn't the #1 seed. This is the same Max Kellerman that revered Michael Jordan, who on several occasions, his team did not have the best record in basketball, didn't stop what they did in the postseason. Max Kellerman has told the fans in the United States of America and throughout the basketball world to, figuratively speaking, go kick rocks, because if you're trying to win a championship, it ain't about winning games in the regular season. But that same Max Kellerman is right here on national television right now telling the world, well, the Houston Rockets are winning more games than the Golden State Warriors in the regular season. Really? Will you make up your mind?
Let me explain something.
Will you make up your mind?
I will explain.
Go ahead. Please.
I will explain something. There's no way to know what's going to happen. There's no way to know what's going to happen in the playoffs because they're not here yet. Based on history, you would make the Warriors still a favorite, maybe because we know what they've done. However, let's go back to another team that was an awesome regular season team with all-time greats on it, but couldn't seem to get over the hump. The Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain Lakers of the late 60s, early 70s. They got upset by the Knicks. They couldn't win a championship.
When you were about 3 years old, if not younger, go ahead.
I was younger.
Keep talking.
I wasn't, Stephen A., I wasn't born yet. You got a couple of years on me, brother.
Wasn't even born yet. Let me just read this. Okay, go ahead.
The point is, in 72, The Lakers won, what was it, 33 games in a row, the all-time record. And that team, it didn't matter how clutch the other team was or how not clutch they were. None of that stuff mattered. At a certain point, you've demonstrated you're just so much better than everyone else, they can't mess with you. And I'm saying the Warriors are so good, maybe that's not the case. But when you go 33-1, it may be that it doesn't matter who may or may not choke on your team, whose three-point ball may or may not be falling, whether or not you have length in the backcourt, the other team. When you go 33-1,
Molly,
you are demonstrating that you are virtually unbeatable,
Molly,
and only another virtually unbeatable team like the Warriors has a shot.
let me pull a Max here.
Okay.
Are you picking the Rockets to beat the Warriors right now?
It's up in the air right now. It's up in the
Oh,
air.
stop it. All that. And you still, and you ain't sure, are you? Uh-huh. But please, let's move on. Please.
Well,
Stop
the
your
question
nonsense.
was not who's
Please.
going to win. The question is, does the Rockets do anything better? They do
I didn't say that was
better.
the question. I didn't say that. I didn't say that
He's
was the
just trying
question.
to drop the
I'm
mic
talking
on
about
you
how you try to sit up there, because that's what Max has done religiously, Molly Wood. Am I lying?
Trying to
He'll
change
sit up
the
there and say,
subject?
well, who are you picking?
trying to
So
change the
now
subject?
you throw it back at Max, and he hemming and hawing. Oh, shut up.
Let's keep
Let's
going,
go.
guys.
Here.
We got other things to discuss. Meanwhile, Anthony Davis returned from a rib injury in the first half and dropped 41 on the Clippers last night as the Pelicans won their 9th straight game. Davis certainly a leading candidate for league MVP, obviously behind James Harden. I'll start with you, Max. Are we shortchanging Davis in our conversation about the MVP?
Not only about the MVP, but I would take a good look at LeBron James right now. You know, though Brady's going to fall off the cliff, and everyone got on me about that, right? And I didn't say it about LeBron, because they don't seem to fall off the cliff in the NBA like the NFL. They seem to go into a kind of steady decline. But I'm telling you this right now, as great as LeBron is, and as he's better than the rest of the league right now, Kawhi is hurt, the jury is out. Love KD. But when you look at Anthony Davis, both sides of the floor, KD's an excellent defender too. Anthony Davis is like an all-time great, versatile defender. It's unbelievable. And he has a more versatile offense than KD's. When you look at AD, I'm telling you right now, take a look at LeBron James over the next 25 or so regular season games, because I believe those will be the last games in the regular season where we still think about LeBron James as the best player in the world. I believe by the end of next season, meaning like start next season, that's going to be the year where Anthony Davis, not Kawhi, got to see with his injury, not KD, AD, Anthony Davis becomes the best player in the world starting next season. And already right now, I think the transition is underway. He's not only pushing James Harden for MVP, he's pushing LeBron for the crown right now.
Well, you know, I got to agree with Captain Obvious there. There's no question about it that this is what Anthony Davis is doing. He's definitely a candidate for league MVP. He's definitely in the discussion for best player in the world. And it's just, he just brings a different dimension to the game. You know what? He's not going to play point forward like LeBron James is, but his shot is good. He can play with his back to the basket or facing the basket. He can rebound. He can defend. He blocks shots. He can literally defend any position on the front line, and some two guards in this league, because he's that versatile. So he's that complete of a player. We didn't talk about him too much because the New Orleans Pelicans were not winning. But without DeMarcus Cousins, they clearly have been doing it. Alvin Gentry deserves he's doing a hell of a job. We were wondering about him a few months ago, but Alvin Gentry has stepped up his coaching and deserves to be recognized for the outstanding job that he's been doing for them during this 9-game winning streak. But when you look at Anthony Davis, to be 6'10", 6'11", to have the inside-outside game that he has, to take over the way that he has taken over, to average about 40. And by the way, when he's doing this, it's always about 10, 12, 15, 18 rebounds along the way with a couple of block shots. You definitely have to look at him and say, when we have a discussion about the best in the world, we need to stop limiting it to LeBron James and Kevin Durant. Anthony Davis has to be inserted into that stratosphere. By the way, even ahead of Kawhi Leonard, because as efficient as Kawhi Leonard is, if I'm going to hit, and obviously there's no comparison, Max, so please don't take it this way, but if I'm going to sit up there and look at Alonzo Ball, for example, as a rookie, and point to his level of assertiveness, I need to look the same at Kawhi Leonard when he returns, because there are moments as great as Kawhi Leonard is, and as efficient as he is. The one thing that you could look at him from time to time is you wished that he was a bit more assertive and more aggressive offensively in terms of looking for his shot and looking for those points. It might be a product of playing the San Antonio system. It might be a product of what Greg Popovich wants him to do. But when I look at Anthony Davis, I see a willingness to take over. And that's what I'm saying elevates him above a Kawhi Leonard, because he does most of the things that Kawhi Leonard does defensively, but Kawhi doesn't do what he does offensively.
Max, on that note, let me ask you this, though. So when would Anthony Davis surpass LeBron as best player in the world? When do you see that happening?
Well, I mean, these things are hard to gauge as they're happening because you need a bigger body of evidence, right? So, like I'm saying, by the end of next year, it'll be obvious that, you know, he passed LeBron. So really what I'm saying is maybe the process has started already. And next year, right from the beginning of the year, I think you're going to notice that LeBron is no better than Anthony Davis. Davis has done things, and we got past him so quickly because of Embiid, because of Porzingis, because of Karl Anthony Towns. We're always looking for next. And as Stephen A. mentioned, when you're hidden on the Pelicans and they never really put a team around you, you're not playing meaningful games. So we're looking for what's next. But meantime, what's here right now is a guy who's fulfilled the potential we thought maybe he had a couple of years ago. And it's like, is this guy already a top 3 or 4 player? Then he got hurt a little bit. He's never quite played a full season. They get him Boogie Cousins. And some were lamenting, well, this is not coming together the way it should. I'm not sure about that. They started to play better and better together. By the way, not coincidentally, the one loss the Rockets have had when they've all been healthy is to AD and Boogie. That was the game that Boogie got hurt in the last 10 seconds. Who knows how good the Pelicans may have been by the end of this season with those two playing together. AD has had to be more assertive since Boogie went down. He's able to do that. He's able to, as I've mentioned, guard the pick and roll by himself, guard both guys. Like, he's done things that I've never seen before. And he's not always the sexy pick because he's not what's next. He's not a guy who's gonna like a wing, a two-way wing, who's gonna score 1 million points by giving you those highlight kind of plays necessarily. He's just probably, if he's not already, very soon going to be the best two-way player in the game. As I said, might deserve the MVP this year. Of course, Harden's just out of his mind, so maybe that's a tough call. And maybe he's already the best in the game, but I think by the end of next year, the body of work will be there to say it much more definitively.
Well, the other thing that we have to point to is the fact that he's going to be in the Western Conference, and so the competition is obviously stiffer because the parity that exists within the conferences are not even. And that's really, the level of competition, rather, is not even. And that's something that LeBron James, one of the things that people have lamented about LeBron is that his entire career has been in the East on a night-in, night-out basis. For the most part, he's not going up against those boys in the West. Anthony Davis is doing that. If Anthony Davis were in the Eastern Conference, my God, what would happen then? Right now in the Western Conference, the New Orleans Pelicans are the 4th seed. They got a 9-game winning streak. You know who's number 3? Portland with Damian Lillard. If the playoffs, obviously with the beginning of the day, Max, you got Denver as an 8th seed. You know what's beautiful about this NBA season? The Clippers are only a half game out of that 8th seed. So if the Clippers were to usurp or eclipse, leap over Denver, what you would have is the Clippers going against Houston in the first round. And who knows what kind of emotions would be revealed during that time and what that could ultimately lead to. So it's all very interesting. But in the end, what it comes down to is that Anthony Davis is doing what he's doing in the West without DeMarcus Cousins. And when you take that into consideration, that's something that you have to look at when you're thinking about the best player in the world because of the conditions under which they're subjected to.
Keep in mind, like, when have we seen Anthony Davis really in a meaningful game? The most meaningful game I can recall is when San Antonio was fighting for playoff position. They were fighting for seeding still, last game of the season, a couple of years ago. And it was both teams needed the game. And as I recall, the San Antonio Spurs were full strength. And AD basically by himself beat the Spurs when the Spurs had something to play for. Now, he didn't have a team around him. Once you get to the playoffs, but he beat the Spurs, Stephen A. Like, when the stakes went up, AD showed up.
Wait a minute. You're forgetting something. Yeah, he beat the Spurs in a regular season game that mattered, that propelled them. But that same year, they went to the playoffs. He had no help. He was a one-man army against Golden State. They got swept, true. But he averaged 30 by himself against Golden State.
Yep.
So I look at that as being even bigger than the win against San Antonio.
When you think about Anthony Davis, and I know it's positionless basketball. You don't want to call him a center exactly. It's kind of unfair to call him a power forward because who would you rather have, Karl Malone in his prime or this Anthony Davis? I don't have to think about that very hard. This Anthony Davis is better than Karl Malone ever was. This Anthony Davis or Charles Barkley in his prime? I'm taking this Anthony Davis. This Anthony Davis or Dirk Nowitzki in his prime? I'm taking AD.
Hold on. Whoa. Here's your problem. You got to consider that. The game is called so tightly, you could say Cottonelle Tissue is a huge sponsor, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
that's how soft the NBA has become compared to that. So if the game were as physical, what would Anthony Davis do? Because even though he might be better, he was more fragile than a Barkley. Barkley wasn't the one getting hurt a lot.
We'll never know.
That was Anthony Davis.
Right. Sure.
Well, we know that.
We'll never know.
That we know.
But what we can see, what we can see is how they each fared in their era. I'm saying, and you're saying, we're both saying, like, AD, if he's not already the best player in the world, is maybe top 3 already. Maybe he's about to be best player in the world. We never thought that about Karl Malone. We never thought that about Charles Barkley. Dirk Nowitzki for a moment. We never thought that about Kevin Garnett. I mean,
yeah, but there's something wrong with your analogy.
Think about that. Okay, Tim Duncan is a separate thing, but like AD, Tim Duncan was a rim-protecting 4. What's that?
Yeah, but you're dissecting it too much. What's wrong with your analogy? Like, for example, Michael Jordan comes along. Would Michael Jordan have been Michael Jordan if it wasn't for Dr. J? Would Dr. J have been Dr. J if it wasn't for Connie Hawkins? The eras that precede you teach you and elevate you to another level. So when I look at guys of this era and we trying to compare them to guys from eras past, I got to look at what those guys in the past did for these guys today. And I think the same has to be done with Anthony Davis.
No doubt. No doubt, but I'm saying you're choosing up teams. A lot of guys that came after Jordan. I'm still taking MJ. Ain't no one come around since MJ where I'm taking it. I got the #1 pick, MJ. Thank you. What I'm saying is applying that. I'm taking AD, except for Tim Duncan. I'm taking him against all the... And by the way, maybe one day we'll stay include Tim Duncan. He is a different kind of cat. We're seeing something new and unique and all-time great.
We got to take a break, guys. Wizards, Pelicans on Friday. That'll be a good one. Stephen A., I know you'll be watching it closely. When we come back, some of the draft quarterbacks impressed at the Combine and some did not. Todd McShay joins us, and we'll tell you who should be worried after their performance in Naptown last weekend. And Bill Belichick will reportedly not have an official defensive coordinator next season, but should Patriots fans be confident or worried about Belichick's latest move?
Max Kellerman, did you know that